Hi, I'm going to show you a new loop today called a while loop. Let me open up the code. All right, if you take a look here and see if you can follow my cursor around, we're going to focus on this part right here. So the first thing I'm going to point out is right here, we have a new keyword called while. Now, we've worked with loops before, but we've worked with for loops. And if you remember right, for loops are very tightly controlled. We usually have a counter and we increment or decrement the counter, and we have a test that stops the loop from happening, which is helpful, but not helpful if you have a situation where maybe you need to continue doing something indefinitely or until a certain condition is true. So if you look at this right here, you can see that we have a test for x is less than 10. So while x is less than 10, then execute the body of the loop. So here we have x up here. Now, in this construct, I have to initialize the variable x. If I don't do that, if I don't initialize x with a value that will work in this test, then that means I will never enter the while loop. So I set myself up to be able to enter it at least once. We call this priming the loop, just like priming a pump. I'm going to prime this variable so that I'm set up to pass the test, and 1 is definitely less than 10, so that will happen. And then every time I go through this, I'm going to print out x, and I'm going to do x gets x times 2. So it's doubling, and it will go through this x number of times until it gets larger. So here is my call right here. 1, 2, 4, 8, and then 8 times 2 is 16, so that's why it exited the loop. All right, and now I got a couple warnings here. Be super careful about infinite loops, because if you thought it was easy to do when you had a for loop, it is infinitely more easy now with a while loop. And this is a super important consideration. Notice how the test x is less than 10 is run before any of the body of the loop is executed. So that's an important detail, and we're going to contrast that with a second sort of setup right down here. Down here we have what's called a do while loop. And the only difference between a do while loop and a while loop is that if you use this setup, you are guaranteed to go through the loop at least once. So down here we have y gets 1, and then it just simply says do. So we do this once, print out y, and then y equals y times 2, and then we run the test at the end. As long as y is less than 10, continue doing the loop. And like I said before, just to stress, if you have a situation, maybe it's like a guessing game where you need a person to make a guess first before you go through the loop. You want them to make a guess and then test to see if it's that number that they guessed or not. You definitely want to go through the loop at least once, and so the do while setup is the one for you. All right. So there we have it, the two different uses, a while loop and a do while loop.